December 3rd, 1941, 23:47 hours. A locked storage room, Station 9, Welwyn, England. The air smells of damp concrete, solder, and stale cigarette smoke. A single bulb throws harsh shadows across a workbench cluttered with wire coils, vacuum tubes, and schematics marked "Most Secret." Two men stand over a small, unassuming wooden box, not much larger than a cigar case. One is a grizzled signals officer, his uniform crisp, his face etched with the skepticism of a man who has seen 100 gadgets come and go. The other is a civilian engineer, his sleeves rolled up, his eyes bright with a conviction that borders on defiance. The officer picks up the device. It's shockingly light. He turns it over in his hands, his thumb brushing against the single Morse key, integrated into the lid. He flips a small switch, hears the faint, almost pathetic hum of its oscillator. A dry, humorless chuckle escapes him. "This," he says, the word hanging in the cold air. "This is what we're pinning our hopes on? What do your boffins call it?" "The Paraset, sir, the B2. It looks like a child's toy, a fancy cigarette lighter." He gestures to the robust, suitcase-sized field radios lined up against the wall. "An agent behind the lines needs power, range, something they can depend on. This is a death sentence. The Germans will hear this tinny little signal from here to Berlin." The engineer says nothing. He simply reaches over, unplugs the device, and with a quiet, deliberate motion, slips it into the deep pocket of his trench coat. It vanishes completely. The officer's smirk falters. The silence that follows isn't just an absence of sound. It's the sound of a paradigm shifting. In that moment, the objection changes. It's no longer about the device's weakness, but the terrifying revolutionary idea it represents: total clandestine mobility. Across the Channel, in occupied Europe, the night is absolute. Blackout curtains drape every window. The only light comes from the slitted headlamps of German patrol cars. In attics, in forest clearings, in the basements of safe houses, resistance fighters huddle around bulky, power-hungry radios, their transmissions booming into the ether like sonic beacons, their lives measured in the minutes it takes for a German funk pile wagon, a radio direction-finding truck, to triangulate their position and kick in the door. They are listening for a savior. What London is offering them, they will soon learn, feels like a whisper in a hurricane. And when the first Parasets arrive, parachuted in canisters or smuggled in diplomatic pouches, the seasoned operatives of the SOE and the Maquis will echo that British officer's laugh. It's a laugh of disbelief, of terror disguised as contempt. They are being asked to trust their fate in the fate of their networks to a cigarette lighter. But in the darkness, a new kind of war is about to begin. One fought not with the roar of artillery, but with the faint, rhythmic pulse of Morse code. A pulse this little box was born to send. And the first agent to power one up, his fingers cold on the key, is about to make a terrifying discovery. In the silent electronic hunt conducted by the enemy, being small isn't a weakness. It's the ultimate weapon. February 14th, 1942, 03:15 hours. A rented attic, Rue de Grenelle, Paris. The cold is metallic, seeping through the roof tiles and into the bones of SOE operative Philippe Leclerc, codename Grenadier. His breath hangs in the air before him, not from the chill, but from the sheer, gut-tightening concentration required for the task. On the makeshift table, a plank over two sawhorses, sits the object of his earlier derision, the Paraset. Its simplicity is insulting. 3 vacuum tubes, a handful of resistors and capacitors, a coil of wire for an antenna which he's carefully strung from the rafters, invisible against the plaster. No speakers, He listens through a single earphone, the sound a private universe of hiss and crackle. His lifeline to London is this wooden box, a Morse key, and 20 watts of power, less than a common light bulb. His fingers, stiff with cold, find the key. He takes a final glance at the coded message on the rice paper beside him. Confirm arrival. Request drop zone Alpha. German Panzer Division in transit through Dijon. The fate of an entire network and potentially the delay of critical German reinforcements to the Eastern Front hinges on this transmission. He taps out his call sign. The Paraset doesn't broadcast, it ticks. A sharp, clean, staccato click-clack that barely echoes in the tiny room. To the German listening posts constantly sweeping the ether for illegal transmissions, it is a ghost, a whisper lost in the cacophony of legitimate commercial traffic, atmospheric noise, in their own military chatter. Their massive, sensitive arrays are tuned for the booming signals of the old, bulky sets. The Paraset signal is too short, too faint, too quickly sent. It slips through their nets like a minnow through a trawler's ropes. In a bunker outside Berlin, a Funkabwehr monitor frowns, adjusting his dials. He caught a fragment, a fleeting anomaly in the static, a pattern that wasn't weather. But before his direction finders could even begin to turn, it was gone. He logs it as a possible atmospheric distortion. A phantom. Back in the attic, Leclerc receives the brief confirming Double Dash from his home station in Buckinghamshire. Message received. Stand by. The entire exchange has taken 47 seconds. He disconnects the battery, packs the Paraset into a modified leather briefcase, and hides it inside a false wall. The room is silent again, just a man in an attic. The only evidence of his act a slight warmth from the valves fading into the frigid air. This is the Paraset's first deadly virtue, illusion. It is not loud, it is fast. It practices the radio telegraphy equivalent of a sniper shot. One precise burst, then vanish. The German direction-finding trucks, the Funkpeilwagons, prowl the streets with their rotating loop antennas, but they are hunters of elephants, not ghosts. They need a sustained signal, a beacon to hunt. The Paraset gives them a match strike in a fog. But for the agent, this virtue births a terrifying new kind of loneliness. You were not connected to the war. You were a single, pulsating neuron in the vast, silent dark. Your world shrinks to this faint click in your ear, the paper in your hand, and the pounding of your own heart, listening for the sound of boots on the stair below. And as the networks grow, as more of these cigarette lighters click into the night from Norway's frozen fjords to the sun-baked hills of Provence, German intelligence begins to sense a pattern. They cannot catch the signal, but they can sense its consequence. Acts of sabotage are too precise. Drop zones are too secure. The resistance is suddenly, eerily well coordinated. The hunters must change their tactics. If they cannot find the whisper, they must find the whisperer. June 18th, 1943, 1400 hours, Avenue Foch, Paris, Gestapo headquarters. The office of Sturmbannführer Karl Bommelberg is oppressively quiet. The only sounds are the distant rumble of traffic on the Champs-Élysées and the deliberate tap, tap, tap of his fingernail on a polished oak desk. Before him lies not a weapon, not a confession, but a dossier. Its title, Funkabwehr Initiative A54, Das Phantomnetz, the Phantom Network. For months, his teams have been chasing echoes, railway lines blown with pinpoint accuracy, garrison commanders assassinated on predictable patrol routes, arms drops received in fields that just hours before were supposedly clear of partisan activity. The intelligence is flowing to the Allies with a speed and precision that defies logic. He knows it's radio, But his technicians, the best radio detection men in the Reich, are coming up empty-handed. He picks up a confiscated set, a bulky British-built Mk2. "This," he says to his adjutant, a cold fury in his voice, "this we can find. It shouts, it screams its location. This new thing, it does not scream." He slams his fist on the dossier. "It insinuates." The German response is a brutal two-pronged adaptation. The first is technological escalation. They deploy the Funkmessgerät, more sensitive mobile detection vans with faster triangulation. They build fixed, towering Funk pile stations along the coasts of France, creating a vast electronic fence. Their strategy shifts from simply hunting a signal to denying the sky. They flood known resistance frequencies with sheer noise, QRM in Morse parlance, jamming the airwaves with a torrent of meaningless code, dashes and static, hoping to drown out the phantom clicks. But the second prong is more insidious, more human. Bommelberg understands that technology has its limits, so he turns to treachery and psychology. Under the Funkspiel, the radio game, captured agents and broken operators are forced, under threat of torture to their families, to continue transmitting. Their Parasets, now in German hands, are used to send disinformation back to London, to lure new agents into traps, to sow distrust. The very tool of connection becomes a weapon of betrayal. For the agent in the field, the psychological landscape turns to quicksand. That confirming dash from London in your earphone, is it truly from Baker Street? Or is it from a Gestapo officer in a basement on Avenue Foch, tapping out a death sentence with a smug smile? Every scheduled transmission window becomes an exercise in existential dread. You are no longer just fighting the cold and the fear of capture. You are fighting the static itself. The jamming turns your lifeline into a wall of chaos. You must strain for agonizing minutes to pick out the genuine signal from the German-made storm. Your fingers on the key grow slick with sweat. The simple act of sending the letter E, a single dot, becomes a monumental act of faith. And yet, the Paraset itself begins to reveal its second, unexpected virtue in this high-stakes duel: resilience. Its simplicity is its armor. No complex components to fail, no fragile speakers. It can be dropped, jostled, operated in damp cellars or windy fields. While the German jamming wreaks havoc on more complex receivers, the Paraset operator, trained to copy through noise, often finds a way. The signal is so inherently clean and narrow that it sometimes cuts through the murk like a laser through smoke. But the pressure is immense. Networks are rolled up, agents disappear. The Germans are closing the net, not on the signal, but on the people. The Paraset kept them hidden. Now the hunt has become personal. In London, Section 5 of the SOE scrambles to develop countermeasures, security checks, bluff codes, deliberate mistakes only the true agent would make. The war of the airwaves has evolved into a game of cryptographic chess where every move is a gamble with lives. And in a safe house outside Lyon, an operative named Yvonne, her Paraset hidden in a loaf of bread, prepares to transmit the most dangerous message of her life, a warning that could expose the entire Funkspiel. She knows the Germans may be listening. She knows her signal might be the one that finally gives her away. But she must key the transmitter. The truth must get through. May 31st, 1944. 23:59 hours. A farmhouse loft near Sainte-Mère-Église, Normandy. The air is thick with the smell of hay, damp earth, and raw tension. Captain Jean Duval, a carpenter, does not feel the cramp in his leg or the ache in his back from hours of stillness. His entire universe is focused on the luminous dial of his wristwatch, the coded message book open on his knee, and the Paraset connected to a car battery hidden in a feed trough. Outside, the night is unnaturally quiet. A Gestapo moon, full and brilliant,
bathes the countryside in a silver light that feels like an enemy. For weeks, the traffic on the Phantom network has been building to a crescendo. Coded weather reports, railway timetables, descriptions of beach obstacles in troop rotations. The messages are staccato bursts scattered across the occupied coast like nervous pulses. London is listening, hungry for every syllable. Duval's task tonight is singular. It is not to report, it is to confirm. At precisely 00:15, his earphone crackles to life. Not with the usual brief acknowledgement, but with a single, repeated code group. A phrase he has memorized, a phrase that carries the weight of the world. It is hot in Suez. The invasion is imminent. This is the final, irrefutable alert to the entire resistance network in France. The hour is upon you. Execute Plan Violet. Execute Plan Green. Cut every telephone line. Derail every train. Sabotage every German communication link you can reach. His fingers fly over the key. Not a long message, a single prearranged response. The carpenter understands. His transmission lasts 12 seconds. In those 12 seconds, the Paraset, the laughed-at cigarette lighter, ceases to be a tool of clandestine communication. It becomes a detonator.
Across Normandy, and then across all of France, thousands of other detonators click into the night. The effect is not immediate thunder, but a creeping paralysis. In Berlin, Oberkommando der Wehrmacht senses a disruption, a strange silence on their own landlines, but reports are fragmented, confusing. They suspect local sabotage, not a coordinated continent-wide stroke. They're wrong. This is the Paraset's ultimate war-winning virtue, orchestration. It has woven a fragmented, isolated resistance into a single, responsive nervous system. It can't move armies, but it can blind them, cripple them, and tie them down. On D-Day itself, as the first landing craft hit the beaches, the German response will be fatally slowed. Reinforcements rolling toward the coast will find bridges blown, rails torn up, and ambushes waiting, all because of whispers sent from attics and barns. But for every Duval sending the fateful signal, there are 100 others performing a more poignant, more personal duty. In a safe house in Brussels, a young operator named Elise taps out a shorter, simpler message, tears streaking her grimy cheeks. It is the cutout signal, the message that tells London her circuit is blown, her comrades captured, that the safe house addresses she is about to destroy in her fireplace are no longer safe. Her transmission is not a detonator, but a eulogy. She sends it, knowing it may be her last, knowing the Funkpilewagen might now, finally, have a long enough signal to fix her position. She sends it anyway. The protocol must be upheld. The network must be protected. The Paraset, in these final, climactic hours of preparation, embodies the dual soul of the Shadow War. It is both the sword that strikes at the strategic heart of the enemy and the shield that attempts with heartbreaking fragility to protect the individual behind the lines. It is a tool of immense power and of profound vulnerability. As the first light of June 1st stains the eastern sky, the airwaves over Europe fall silent. The work is done. The stage is set. The hunters and the hunted now wait for the storm to break from the sea. And in London, a signals officer leans back in his chair, removes his headphones, and looks at the wall map dotted with agent codes. Some are still active. Some have gone dark forever. All of them were heard.
September 17th, 1944, 10:00 hours. A warehouse, Section 8 Depot, Staffordshire, England. The war here is over, not with a bang, but with a quiet, dusty sigh of obsolescence. Sunlight slants through high windows, illuminating motes of dust dancing above long trestle tables. On them, row upon row, sit the Parasets, hundreds of them, returned from the field in diplomatic bags, recovered from liberated safe houses, or simply turned in by agents who no longer need to hide.
A young RAF technician, not much older than the war itself, picks one up. It feels absurdly light in his hands, this thing of legend. He flips the lid, runs a finger over the worn brass of the Morse key, polished smooth by 1,000 anxious transmissions. He plugs in a battery, connects a test lead, and taps a single V for victory. ... The familiar sharp click-clack echoes faintly in the vast, quiet space. It sounds lonely. This is the epilogue. And here, in this warehouse of ghosts, we understand the final, enduring truth of the Paraset. Its legacy is not in its technology, which was already being surpassed by war's end. Its legacy is in the paradigm it forged. Remember the scoffing signals officer in Section 1? His world was built on power, bulk, and sustained contact. The Paraset's creators bet the lives of agents on the opposite: minimalism, portability, and fleeting presence. They understood that in the electronic hide-and-seek of clandestine war, the greatest strength was to be a ghost, not a giant.
Look at this table. See the modifications made in the field? A cigarette case adapted as a concealment, a battery compartment rerouted with field wire, a key smoothed by a particular operator's thumb. Each scratch, each solder blob is a story. This one was used in a Parisian garret to coordinate the sabotage of a locomotive roundhouse. That one spent 6 months in a waterproof canister buried in a Breton farmer's field. Another bears a faint, dark stain near the power terminal that might be blood. The men and women who used them did not laugh for long. They came to trust this little box with a ferocity reserved for few things in the Shadow War. It was their confessional, their megaphone, their only tether to sanity and home. In its faint, steadfast click, they found a peculiar kind of courage, the courage to be alone, in the dark, and to speak to the void, and have the void answer back. The German Funkub there, in its post-war assessments, would grudgingly admit the Paraset was one of the most effective and vexing tools they ever faced. It forced them to waste immense resources on a hunt that often yielded nothing. It turned every attic, every barn, every forest clearing into a potential, untraceable command post. It proved that in modern war, the most powerful signal isn't the loudest, it's the one you cannot catch. So, as the technician places the device back in its row, the story comes full circle. It began with a laugh of disbelief. It ends here, in respectful silence. The parachutes had been packed away, the safe houses are just houses again. The agents have faded back into the world, or into memory. But if you listen, not with your ears but with your imagination, you can still hear it, in the static between stations on an old radio, in the tap of a branch against a window pane. Click, clack, click, clack. The sound of a whisper that helped change the world.